Thank you so much for having us. I'm really excited about this panel. My name is Beth Berger. I run the Americas for Moloco, which is a late-stage machine learning and AI company that does about $2 billion a year in ad spend, helping connect brands with high-value mobile app users outside of Google and Meta. I am joined by a fantastic panel, and we thought it might be fun to do intros in a lightning round. And so I'm going to ask each of you in 60 seconds or less to share your name, where you work, cheat sheet behind you, and the biggest win that you've led for your business with AI in the last year. Shall we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Joshua Nafman. I'm the Vice President of Data, Digital Media, anything attached to electricity, apparently. I would say my biggest win with regards to AI, I'll say focuses on the boring side of AI, if there is one, and that's just making AI move from novelty to acting more like electricity, so as a shared utility across the company from a marketing standpoint.
That's great. I bet that sounds familiar to you.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Matthew Duncan. I'm with Microsoft, and I lead our Future of Work initiative at Microsoft, everything AI at work. What was the big win? Well, actually, I was really excited about what we did with our Work Trend Index, which is our research around the frontier firm, really identifying what is the next coming of AI in the frontier.
Ashley Travis, Head of Growth Marketing at Pizza Hut. A little bit more yummy than, Microsoft. I think our biggest win is, this year we began embedding AI into all of our CRM communication. So we're still in the early stages, but to really enable personalization at scale through push notifications, emails, and then eventually other customer touch points as well.
Fantastic. So as you can hear, this is a really diverse panel, I think, and so I'm excited for the conversation we'll have. So, Matthew, I think that one of the things that is commonly, I think, maybe breezed through when people talk about AI is that if you think about AI as a thought partner or a coach, or, and I'm going to quote you to you, I think we found an article that said you described it as the extra arms and legs to every employee, which is such a useful, I think, metaphor for what's possible. I'm curious where you see the biggest opportunities for brands to plug in meaningfully, like right now, not in the distant future of AI, but today.
Absolutely. I do think that if we think about this as just a technology, we're missing the boat, right? We need to think about it as a new way of working. And yeah, who does not want to have a thought partner or a co-pilot or a companion to really figure out how to amplify the things that you got to get done every day and make you look better, to be honest. So I do think it starts with the individual. I think that is happening right now. Those that actually are having a conversation with their AI and going back to it and helping them prep for a meeting and understanding, poking holes into your latest presentation, that's getting value that you're not going to get back. And yes, it'll save you time, but really figure out how it amplifies your human assets and ability. And I think you can do that today and then take that one step further and start to make it a teammate. Bring AI or your agent to your team meetings. Give it a role, responsibility, skills, and leverage. And I think you're going to find that, and brands can do that from a marketing standpoint, whether you're plotting a new campaign or product, etc.
Wait, that is why you called it Copilot. That did not click for me until just now that you named it Copilot, because it is your co-pilot at work.
The marketing
Brilliant.
has spoken.
Okay, it's seeping in finally.
I think something that's so interesting about that idea is that there's a real iterative nature and relational nature that you're describing. What do you think what do you see as the biggest blocker or slows people down in really reaching the level of interactivity that you're describing?
Yeah, it's about a conversation. It's a mindset. I'm serious. When I go around, whether I'm talking to a CEO or a VP of marketing, and they're still trying to utilize it like search, is the problem? So I asked this very one simple question. Not did you use it today, but how long is your conversation with your, generative AI or Copilot? And it should be weeks. You should be having, oh, you know what? I presented those ideas. 2 of the 3 didn't really fly. What did we do wrong? Like utilizing it in that format starts to unlock. That means giving it enough context. Yes, you have to spend some time to give it context. Then you're going to reap the benefit out of it. It's a light bulb switch on.
I think that's a really big change in sort of growing from early adopter to getting the full value. Ashley, as our marketing mind here, one of the things that at Moloco we've been doing a lot of research into is really trying to understand how has brand discovery changed in this new world. And one of the most interesting insights we see again and again is that customer relationship looks like it's the most durable asset that any brand can have in this new normal. And so I'm curious, Pizza Hut, like ultimate brand, ultimate beloved set of connotations. In this new normal, how do you think about your mobile app as a place to really invest in as part of your ecosystem of driving that level of customer relationship?
Yeah, I think if you think about the invasiveness of a mobile app on your phone. Nothing is more personal to a customer these days than their mobile device. And if they are going to trust you enough to put your app on their phone and enable push notifications, they want to hear from you, and you have to uphold that trust. And so it's really important that you drive as much relevancy as possible. So we're using AI, like I said, to personalize a lot of our communications because we need to be relevant, and if we to maintain that trust with our customers. And then you also, I think the way in which people are discovering and making their decisions, as you said, is changing rapidly. Earlier this year, I was telling you before, we all of a sudden, our performance of search just went off of a cliff. And we were like, what is happening? What is happening? We called the agency, we were looking at tech problems. And what we found is just overnight, the way in which people are consuming information has completely changed with AI driving a lot of search results. So that's requiring us to kind of rethink how we approach and how we feed those engines, and then the way in which they are going through their customer journeys, their attention spans. We thought they were small with the rise of social media. Now they're even smaller. And so push notifications now just become billboards. And so they're not clicking on them as much anymore. They're looking at it. And then they expect to be able to go back to your app and find that information that they received in the push notification without having to click on it. So it requires you to really look at your entire MarTech stack with your customer data and ensure you're building those journeys as you go through greater and greater personalization. If you are going to send a bespoke, personalized one-to-one offer and communication, it has to be in the app. It has to be in the communication. It has to be in all of the customer touch points. It has to be in the restaurant for them. If they come in, I got a push notification about a 50% off offer. The team member has to be able to know about it. And if it's a one-to-one, yesterday was impossible. Well, tomorrow it isn't. And so it's really requiring us to rethink our entire MarTech stack, how we have a truly connected system, and we create an operating model to enable that system to make it as easy as possible to be relevant to our customers.
I love that. What's been the most surprising thing you've learned now that you're starting to really connect the dots on that personalization journey?
I think that the most surprising thing I've learned is how much joy it brings to people. So, yeah, we've embedded AI into our CRM communications, but last year, March Madness, we experimented with generative AI to create a chatbot that was a mascot. His name was Huddy. And he was a real life mascot, but he was also a chatbot that knew everything about college basketball, and you could communicate with him. And customers spent on average 10 minutes chatting with Huddy. And those stories we got back from customers of how much fun they had, the level of engagement was so surprising. I think I have a video If it will play. I think I have a video that can show people, and I think just how much people love it is great.
When it comes to sports, it doesn't get much better than March Madness. It's 3 weeks of nonstop alley-oops, upsets, and unstoppable action. And today's fans are looking for more ways to stay up on the action. Introducing Huddy, your sports-loving, pizza-slinging March Madness sidekick in the form of a Meta AI chatbot. Need help breaking down a matchup? Huddy's got you. Need a killer comeback for your trash-talking friend? Huddy's quick with a zinger. Need a deal on pizza for your watch party? Huddy's got the hookup. And Huddy didn't just join the conversation. He owned it. He answered tons of questions, delivered thousands of exclusive pizza deals, and rewarded the most engaged fans with free pizza for a year. And when the Final Four rolled around, we took Huddy from the screen into the real world. Huddy dazzled fans at FanFest, stormed the student section, and brought pizza and joy to everyone in San Antonio. From second screen sidekick to real-life MVP, we gave sports fans more of what they love. And if you thought we brought the madness to March, wait till you see where Huddy shows up next.
I love that. We did not know that this was going to get, we're going to get a whole video part.
Yeah, and I really apologize showing pictures of pizza right before lunchtime.
Oh, so brutal.
But what I love is there's this real tie here in how both of what you've talked about in prolonging the depth and the length of engagement. That's what some of the real magic is coming from.
Yeah, and we didn't think people would want to engage. We didn't know because it was so new, right? And the NCAA, I'll be honest, was very nervous, and they said no at first. And there was a lot. It was a great partnership. They're amazing partners, as is Warner Brothers in our sponsorship. Like, we trained the crap out of this thing, and so I think it was just surprising to all of us that there wasn't a barrier to entry because people are, like you said, embedding it into their daily lives.
So I wanna pivot a bit off of something that you were talking about, Ashley, when it comes to personalization and how important it is to get all your systems talking to each other and getting your data right. And Joshua, I think something we were talking about and thinking about what would be useful to this audience today is really some of how you've been thinking about approaching first-party data, particularly in a world when a lot of the third-party data sources are maybe getting less reliable. And so I'm curious how you've been innovating with first-party data and how you're thinking about it when it comes to creative, but also measurement and other things.
Yeah, from a first-party data standpoint, we have hundreds of millions of consumer profiles unified in a system, just like most people, for the targeting, suppression, and personalization of those things. The place where we're really seeing the innovation is where we're pairing that with a more specific location, so think longitude, latitude, postal code, zip code, and then also pairing that with our commercial data, which we're finding is as we expand our definition of first-party data to beyond people, but to what makes Diageo unique in the marketplace, our sales data for one of the largest beverage companies in the world is pretty substantial. And so from there, we started doing some propensity modeling, not to get too nerdy about it, but basically, how can we identify a location rather than only an individual of whether or not that place has a preference for, let's say, vodka versus whiskey, or a preference for high-end liquors versus low-end liquors, as an example. And we created something called the Diageo Data Index. Sounds a little bit nerdy, but overall, it's really kind of helped us, I would say, update and optimize our biddable media. So think social, think programmatic. 73% of our media is covered by that. And it's improving our effectiveness 35%, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's something where we're seeing the combination of first-party datas rather than just going with what's one thing rather than all of them working together.
It really strikes me how much all of this innovation work really comes down to, you call it nerdy, but I think for everybody here, like, we know it comes down to the brass tacks. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Something that I'm struck looking at all three of you is that you've all sort of talked about how generative AI has the opportunity to really connect and in ways that increase personalization and relevancy. And I think that really speaks to something kind of interesting, which is that a lot of the discussion about AI in the media is about AI as tools. But really what we're talking about are not just technological changes, but behavioral changes, right? So, I mean, earlier, Ashley, you were talking about Google searches. I think nationally, we're seeing something like 80% of Google searches end without a click now. That's a huge change behaviorally. And so I'm curious, each of you have, I think, a distinct point of view on what you might think brands miss or get wrong when it comes to addressing consumer behavior shifts when it comes to this new world. What are we overlooking?
I could start. I think a key thing that we're overlooking is there still needs to be a value exchange with consumers. And what I mean by that is not just, hey, how am I capturing your data and my present to you or my value to you is more advertising. That's not a gift that a lot of people kind of count as. And then I'd say the other thing that I think we're missing is, trying to think of the best way to describe it, it's just because we're doing things faster on the marketing side or cheaper on the marketing side, that doesn't equal better. And I think that by all of us trying to avoid fear of missing out or being left behind in kind of all of the changes, is that we're all sprinting towards, here's how I'm saving time, here's how I'm saving money. But at the end of the day, if you put your consumer hat on, is this actually better for me? Is this actually more personalized, or is it getting into a creepy area, or is it doing something that is fundamentally different? I think we're missing doing something fundamentally different.
I think it comes to, from a consumer and value, it's, are you giving me more contextual experience based on what you've learned and sort of utilizing the LLMs and the knowledge accumulation to create a better experience? So, I don't know if that's necessarily always just throwing up an AI kiosk, but maybe it's actually AI powering humans to be better and more effective in the way when it might need to be a one-to-one personalized experience because they have the context and the sort of resource available to make them even that much better.
Yeah, I would say I think we're missing the magic a little bit because as this technology becomes, as we start to use it more and more in more spaces, we start to become, and this is difficult for me to say as the head of growth marketing, but we start to become more and more performance driven, which is important, and we need to be performance driven. And as we start to get more and more data on the effectiveness of our media or the effectiveness of our CRM because we're driving more personalization, it becomes really easy for us to be reliant on that and to miss building those connections with customers. And there is a role for brands still in that human interaction and those human experiences. And so sometimes we get so kind of caught up in the technology and the digital nature of their behavior, we forget about the human connectedness of their behavior. So I think finding that balance of doing both, being performance driven, but finding those moments of magic and connection to create with customers and finding ways in which to be able to do both at the same time is what's really going to stand out.
All three of you, we keep coming back to this idea of the human experience and the magic. I'm curious, for each of you, what's been the most inspirational thing you've seen from your point of view at your companies over the last year when it comes to rethinking the experience to really for your customers to really use your products in a truly new way? Is there something specific that comes to mind? I think we saw a video of one.
I would say we're spending a lot of time thinking about how are we marketing to robots, AI, algorithms that are then gatekeeping or marketing to our consumers, trying to figure out what are the sources, how are decisions made, and ultimately how can we influence those things, where should we step in and try to influence those things, and where should we just get out of the way. Also asking the fundamental questions of why am I being brought up in this situation or why am I not being brought up in this situation that's being there. And it's really interesting kind of, it's almost like a detective approach of like, hey, let me try this. Let me see what questions are being asked. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what consumers are going to ask. They're not going to all ask it in the same way. But ultimately, they're trying to make their lives easier, either more joyous, more entertained, or more informed. And now I'm trying to think of what is the data or information or ways that I can actually help that along, whether I own that experience or not.
I also think there's some interesting new territory when it comes to this concept of synthetic data, like trying to actually predict and understand sort of where the world is going. We did a pretty interesting exercise in this last year in which we were going out with a research to like 31,000 people to really understand what the trends were happening in work. And before we did that, we actually hypothesized and then used a synthetic model to like say, hey, this is what we predict, what is actually going to be said or learned. And it wasn't far off. And so I think there's some magic that would shape the way we might produce new products and think about how to better serve consumers in that realm.
I think for any marketer, that sounds really magical. Ashley, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, where we're headed from an analytics standpoint is really exciting because as a marketer, I always have 100 questions. And if I have to have one more conversation of, okay, we can build you a dashboard. Like, no, I don't want a dashboard. I want a chat bot where I can ask all of the questions I have about our business, customer segments, growth, and it's going to pull information from all of our different data sources. And so I think we're getting there as a company. We're not quite there yet, but we're starting to have those conversations of, wait, do we need to create a dashboard or can you just kind of overlay some AI on top to get me the answers I need faster? That's what really inspires me because it'll allow us to learn and adapt much more quickly.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm on the anti-dashboard side of things. I have thousands of dashboards, thousands of dashboards that nobody uses and everybody claims that they use. And ultimately, I'm thinking in terms of what is reactive of how is our organization asking questions, the different ways they're asking them, et cetera, and how do we provide answers. But also I'm thinking in the proactive way. So my dream is essentially, let's say, Microsoft Clippy comes back to life and it goes, it looks like you're writing a Johnny Walker brief. Did you know that 15 other people in your organization are writing a Johnny Walker brief? Here's the data sources that will fill it in. Would you like me to fill this in so that it's more proactive? Because things I think the most curious people are going to ask great questions and be able to seek it in a dashboard or in a search or in a chat. And then the vast majority are going to go, I have a million things on my plate. I need something to prompt me rather than just prompting an AI.
Yes, imagine the efficiency that's going to drive.
Matthew, imagine it. What can
exactly.
you tell us?
No, and exactly. That's where we're going, right? That's exactly where we're going. Because Ashley, it's not just going to ask this agent, hear my questions and give me some answers. Advise me. Let's have a conversation. How should I think about this? It's almost eliminating, by the way, Bob in the corner who's supposed to be telling you what the data does. Like, no, you know your business, you know your work. I just need to collaborate with this.
And to be able to ask the what if questions and scenario plans. So it's like, okay, in March Madness, what if we did a stuffed crust pizza promotion or a wings promotion? What would perform better? And having that conversation and in real time as marketers before you even get to, involving finance and involving being able to pull third-party information as well as our first-party information to be that initial advisor to whittle down the plethora of ideas that come out of marketing into what we think will be most impactful and then put those through the process will just allow us to be further upstream in our planning and create more powerful campaigns.
Well, I love that we're really looking towards the future, I think, as we start to think about what is possible. So I wanted us to wrap with a Mad Lib style finisher. And it's on this kind of looking forward theme. So in 2026, from your points of view, in 2026, the brands that succeed with AI will be the ones who fill in the blank. Ooh, who's first?
I would say hire and enable their people to use the technology in their personal and professional lives. I think embedding it in your culture as an organization and embedding it into your business to where it is normal to use ChatGPT to write emails and memos. It is normal to use Copilot to record meetings and send out the notes and action items. You normalize that, but then you also enable, so our organization, we have enterprise ChatGPT, and we are empowered to use it in our personal lives as well. And so I have it on my home screen of my phone, and it's gave me Elf on the Shelf ideas. It helped me with my Christmas planning, and it does all of those things. And when you enable your team members and your employees to start to use the technology to enhance their personal lives, it's going to spark amazing ideas of how they can apply that technology to their professional work. And so once you start to kind of normalize that and you change the culture and you change the mindset, that's where big ideas are going to come that are going to transform the business.
Plus one to that. And I think I kind of coin it as the year of the how. So as we move forward, take a process, look at your business, think about what is that one process. It might be creative briefs that you're working on, and dissect it. Think about what the steps that you're taking, what's working, what's not. Apply AI to one of the critical components of it and reimagine how work is getting done. That's the unlock here. I mean, trying to automate what you already do today, you are missing the boat. Because I'm telling you, there's AI native startups out there that are already thinking that way and are going to disrupt. So if you're not doing that in your business, you're going to be lost.
Joshua.
For me, it's I think we need to be introspective and really understand how work actually gets done versus theoretically gets done. I think that I have a lot of best practices, and this is how we build brands, and this is how we buy media, and this is the standards we need to meet. And then there's all those little side conversations that happen where it goes, oh, I go and talk to Tim or Isabel, or oh, I just kind of make this part up, and it just kind of happens. The world isn't operated by magical internet elves, ultimately. It's operated by kind of spoken and unspoken processes. So I think first we need to understand those, and then we need to make the decisions of where are we going to automate the legacy processes that we have, and where are we going to let AI possibly find a new process that might make us a little bit uncomfortable. I'm questioning whether or not we actually have the objectivity to go, this is a better way, when that way might not involve me as much as it used to. And I think that's an uncomfortable thing for us to work through.
And what are the best practices that need to be blown up and thrown out the window because they're no longer relevant? I think that is a tough conversation to have with leaders that are set in their ways, but those are the conversations we need to start having, because if we don't, then those brands will be left behind.
It's really interesting that the vast majority of the conversation we're having is we're talking about people problems rather than technology problems.
Amen.
I don't think any of us have technology. I mean, maybe we do on the data and access and our funding side, but things those are solvable things. A lot of the challenges are how are you working through the matrix and or intricacies of working with people, and what happens when people are involved or not involved, feel less involved, feel more involved.
And add to that, it's going to be the year we're going to be working with agents. So people and agents, you're going to be an agent boss. You will be managing a team of agents. What does that look like? How do you collaborate? How do you actually incentivize to make your agents as effective as your people?
And how do you do things differently? We are all going to have access to LLMs, to third-party, second-party data. What is truly going to make us unique so that we're not all going to the average, to the mean? And that's the thing that I'm focused on, is not just like, I think you mentioned the magic. Where is the magic? It's how are we truly going to be unique outside of our products, outside of certain data points and things like that? How can we truly be unique in our offering rather than just I'm using a technology?
So what I am really struck by as we bring this panel to a close is thinking about, a year ago at CES, I think when we were talking about the power of AI and what's going to mean for our businesses, so much of our conversation was theoretical, right? It was envisioning, it was imagining, and I'm so engaged by how tactical I think a lot of the things that we've discussed today are. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to be talking about a year from now on this stage. So with that, big round of appreciation, applause for our panelists, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.